Alright, welcome back to the 144,000 Project. It's video 12, and we're doing You Are Gods. So here's our channel, Rev9 Video. And we're, let's go. Oh, what I wanted to mention, I was doing some updates on the quotes in New Testament in order. And I realized, really right here, this is Matthew 4:16, where it's the first mention of the word Gentiles, for example. And I just put the Luke, I think 68-69 there. And I was looking at that again, and I realized that, this is so easy. What's in Matthew 4:16, which quotes Isaiah 9:2, which there's no Gentiles in Isaiah 9:2. It's about the 12 tribes. And Christ being a light to someone. Well, over here in Luke, which the quote really is 68 through 79, but actually you have a triple witness there. So this is about the same thing Matthew 4:16 is, about the light coming to these people, which I say is the 12 tribes over here in Luke. But actually you have a triple witness of the fact that it's the 12 tribes. You have 3 different prophecies. One's from an angel. So the first one is from the angel Gabriel. So if you read 1:26 through 38, you got Gabriel speaking to Mary. And then the second part about Mary actually gives a prophecy. Of course, she just basically got a prophecy from Gabriel. And Elizabeth has a child in her old age. It says she's advanced age, which kind of parallels the idea of Abraham and Sarah having a child in their old age. But then you have Zacharias, who wasn't able to speak because the angel came to him, and then it says he disbelieved what the angel said. But then when he can speak, he gives his prophecy in 68 through 79, and it's clearly, just look at all 3 of these. You got 3 prophecies here, and of course they're all in context of the 12 tribes and about Christ being born from Mary, from the Spirit. Okay, same context as sons being born from the Spirit. Okay, so it's prophecy of Christ bringing the light to the 12 tribes. It can't be anybody else but the 12 tribes. But over here in Matthew 4:16, it says the light's coming to the Gentiles. And you go back to Isaiah 9, it's 12 tribes. So that should be pretty obvious. At any rate, I thought I'd try out some of this highlighting. So, the stumbling stone. Actually, the biggest teaching in the New Testament, as far as the number of verses goes, is the stumbling stone. Most of that's Psalms 118:22 is where you have most of your cross references. But, like here they are, Psalms, Matthew, Luke, Acts, Peter, Romans, stumbling stone. And this one down here should quote Psalms 118 and Isaiah 53, Christ the stumbling stone. Okay. And here's another, Psalms 118, Christ the stumbling stone. So, got a lot of teaching about the Israelites who stumbled over the message of Christ. And then you get back here, this is Romans 9:33, quotes Isaiah 28:16 about the stumbling stone. Okay, so you've got it in multiple places, in other words. And then here's another one, Isaiah, Christ the stumbling stone. And then here you go. Then you get to Peter, and you've got both verses. You've got Isaiah and Psalms. Peter quotes both of them, which absolutely connects Isaiah to Psalms to Christ the stumbling stone, and makes the point that of course the stumbling stone is Christ, the stone, in other words, which is why they call it the stumbling stone. And then he's the angle stone, and the keystone, the headstone, all this kind of stuff. Stone, the rock, shield, scepter, yeah. So I'm going through here and doing these highlights. Here's another one. Isaiah 8:14. So you got 2 in Isaiah and Psalms and so forth. At any rate, I think that'll look good when I get done with that. And make it, I'm just going to, there's a few things in here like the royal priesthood. I'm going to highlight that. The royal priesthood is one of these key things because it ties to Revelation. In fact, we're going to be on Revelation 1, 6, and 7 here in a few minutes with this other connection, and we're going to be at Exodus, which is a quote. So, yeah, ties it all together. All right, let's, I guess we can close that one. Yeah. Here we're going to come back. We were on, we're in Genesis. We're on 35, basically the quote's 35:11, but, and I mentioned this first part about how 35:11, this great nation and commonwealth is actually, connects to the royal priesthood, connects to the, and it can say a nation or an assembly or company or commonwealth of nations, that way. Multitude of nations, yeah. So I went through all these. And that goes back to basically the beginning of chapter 12. So I went by all that. I said there has to be Christian nations. Then we mentioned the two witnesses, the two land kingdoms. Okay, so the basic connections then. So we get back to the basic connections of the 12 tribes to the two witnesses, to the redeemed 144,000, and that's talking about Revelation, in other words, in order. Would start with Exodus 19:6, which is a quote. We just saw it. It's a quote from the New Testament. So, and really, it, you know, you just had all these things happen to them where they came out of Egypt. They've got water out of the rock, and all these things have happened. And then the important thing just before that, in chapter 18, was the advice of Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses. And he told him to, it's about 20 or so, he told him to get your best people, in other words, and put them in positions of judges over tens, hundreds, and thousands, and then bring the only the hardest cases to Moses, in other words, because he was sitting there all day long judging the people and couldn't get to all the cases. So he says, you know, what you're doing is not right. So this is the idea of where we get our lower courts, our appeals court, Supreme Court, so on and so forth for our court system. Same idea. But you're supposed to get people that are your best of your best, that hate bribes and don't judge based on people's station in life, in other words. So, you know, where would you find those except they have to, would have to be Christian people because they're judging based on God's law, in other words. Alright, so, everybody should know 19:6. Start about 3. Moses went up to God, the ever-living called to him from the hill, and of course this is Christ. Says to the house of Jacob, form the children of Israel. Okay, so the context has to be only to the family he just brought out of Egypt. Okay. You've seen what I did to the Egyptians. Okay. So this is the context of you are gods. That's what we're on. The context of you are gods, of course, he only does these things for this family who he has this covenant with. So we've, up to this point, we've broken down who this family are. They start with Abraham. We've got all these prophecies that apply to Abraham and Sarah, and but basically to the posterity of Abraham. And then now we're here at this prophecy here in 35:11, and this is where it really gets interesting. So, if you listen to my voice, keep my laws, you shall be a peculiar people more than all the peoples of the earth. You shall be to me a royal priesthood, a holy nation. Well, you can only be a royal priesthood and holy nation if you follow his laws. So that's what he's telling you. These are the words you shall speak to the children of Israel. Okay. Never said that would be anything else. But you mentioned in verse 9 here, and 1 Peter 2:9, by the way, you know, cross-references back here. This is the basic, this is the first cross-reference to the royal priesthood in Peter. See, 1 Peter 2:9. So here's where it comes. And there's multiple mentions, but right here, also in verse 9, he's talking about coming by, passing by him in a cloud of fire. And he says, I will remain with you always. Right? Alright, and they're at Mount Sinai. Okay. So, the next one then, 28:9. Oh, 9 to 29, sorry. Alright, this is the stones. So these are the same stones, if you read through there. And he's supposed to engrave upon them the names of the sons of Israel. 6 of their names on one, names of other 6 on the second stone. That had to be a big stone they're going to engrave on it in the order of their birth. Engraving like a seal. Okay. Having engraved the 2 stones with the names of the sons of Israel, shall cause them to be surrounded with settings of gold, and so on and so on. 2 chains of pure gold. Also make a breastplate of justice. That's verse 15. And he mentions ruby, topaz, diamond, emerald, sapphire, jasper, so on and so on. So these are the same stones up there in Revelation. I guess it's chapter 21. Stones shall have the names of the 12 sons of Israel, their names engraved like a seal. Okay, each one. That's verse 21. Okay. Oh, 29. Yeah, well, it just goes on about making how it's all done. It's an epha. Whatever. Alright. Oh, and then 43. That's part of that. These shall be worn by Aaron and his sons when they go into the tent of the congregation, or to clothe them at the altar when serving, it says when serving religion, so that they might not excite passion and die. This is perpetual order and his descendants after him. Okay, it's talking about the robes. Alright, that's how he consecrates the priest. So the stones, the connection there is that, and I could, I guess, go back and put this cross-reference to Revelation on that. Probably the best thing to do. So next one would be 39:6. Alright, again, stones, gold settings, engraved with the names of the sons of Israel, place them on the shoulders as memorial stones for the sons of Israel. Okay, breastplate, gold, azure, purple, linen, then it mentions the stones again. So it looks like pretty much the same things, buttons, chain, 2 chains of gold. Same thing as he said before. Alright, then we go to 40:15. Okay, and then he talks about these priests forever and their descendants. So he just mentioned a royal priesthood. Here he mentions it again, a holy priesthood in 40:15. That's on my chart. I've kind of tied all it together on my Revelation chart already. You'll see all of those right at the beginning of Revelation. I think that's 1:6. Alright, so that's 40:15. Then we go to Numbers 23:8. Alright, talking about Balaam's prophecy. They're looking over this. He wants them to curse Jacob, insult Israel, and he says they can't. Balaam says he can't curse him. God does not curse him. He can only say what, in other words, what Christ tells him to say. He says, "A people, and from the hills I survey him, a people dwelling alone, not mixed up with the nations." Okay. Well, people say, well, you know, where's this idea we can't marry other people? Yeah, there's multiple mentions. Besides Nehemiah, that's in Joshua, when they went over and took over these countries, they were told not to mix with them, not to marry their sons and daughters, and that kind of thing. They're told that multiple times, but it's actually part of the law. Here again, they're not mixed up, they're not intermarried with the nations. Who can number the dust of Jacob? Who can count Israel's increase? And this should be 8-10, okay? Then in the same part, 21-24, he perceived no fault in Jacob, saw not no wrong in Israel. The living God is with him. Say, ye are gods, because the living God is with you when you do what he tells you to do. It's the same concept as blessings and curses all the way through the Bible, all the way to the end. No change, never changes. You have to follow his law, do what he says. You have to appeal to Christ as your Savior, Redeemer, that kind of thing. Okay, but they knew Christ back here. It was Christ that brought them out of Egypt. So they knew about this spirit, this cloud of fire, and this prophet that Moses spoke about and gave him a prophecy and said, I'm going to send you this prophet. Yeah, that's Christ. Okay, they call him a prophet, and before that Jacob called him an angel, and before that Abraham called him a king of righteousness, a shield. They knew all those things. We know him as Christ when we get to the New Testament, but they knew him. Everybody saw all of that happen. Plus half the world, that everybody that heard about it, knew about it, regardless of what they thought, they heard about it. Okay. So, we're still in 23, 21, 24. So he's talking about bringing him out of Egypt. God brought him from Egypt, and he's like a mighty bull. There's no chain for Jacob and no subjector. So they can't be subjected to other nations, which in I think there's 3 mentions I've got on my chart that you can't submit yourself to other kings and other, I forget exactly how that's worded, it's on my chart. In time they will say of Jacob and Israel, what wonders God has done. Okay, well these wonders God has done, He's done for the 12 tribes, which makes them, you are God's, because He only works for the 12 tribes. House of Israel, house of Jacob, no one else. No one else has a covenant. No one else has to required to follow His law. In essence, you know, we're the judges, and so He gave that to us. Made a royal priesthood and to judge the nations. That's what they're all about. Now, a lot of them rejected it, but still, He's going to make it happen. See the people how it advances like a lion. Yep, Lion of Judah. There you go. Alright, so that's just another blessing of quoting there. So you go to 24, 5 through 9. How lovely, Jacob, are your halls. What tents are yours, O Israel. They wave like rivers, like watered gardens, like groves the Lord has planted, like cedars besides the brook. Well, okay, this is the idea of a family tree, so comparing trees to people. People trees. And the seed has plenty of water, see, so it's not talking about trees, it's talking about people. His king shall be greater than Agag, and his dominions exalted. God brought him from Egypt, what a mighty bull he is. He devours opposing nations, crushes the splinters, couches paws like a lion, like a tiger. Who dare arouse him? Who blesses you? Myself will bless, I will curse your curser. That goes back to chapter 12 of Genesis. That's where it started. Same idea. Alright, so that's, this is still part of 24 then. 17 to 24. Oh, okay. I shall see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. He brings a star from Jacob. Remember the crown of 12 stars, right? So 12 tribes, star from Jacob, same context. From Israel wields a staff, which is the rod of God. Was an almond branch, by the way. Breaks the side of Moab, destroys his warlike sons, will seize upon Edom, possess his enemy. For Israel forms his host, Jacob's son comes down, cuts off escape from the fort. It's talking about Christ. He then turns toward Amalek, continue the poem. Amalek was the first of the nations, but his posterity shall be destroyed. Wow. Woe to Asher, woe to Heber, for they at last shall fail. Yeah. Okay, woe to Heber. So he's talking about those of the 12 tribes who rejected Christ are going to fail at the end. Okay, that's how it wraps up. Alright, 25:13. Okay, he and his heirs after him shall have an enduring priesthood. So, it's talking about Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron. Okay, turned away death from the children of Israel by the zeal. That's where we get zealous. The zeal for which he was zealous for me among them. So, he actually killed some of the people of Israel that had taken these Midianites as wives. Therefore, I command to give him the bond of peace. You see. Oh, let's see. Israelite who's killed when the Midianitess was killed with Zimri, the son of Saul, prince of the house of Simeon. Okay. And the girl that Phineas killed was Cosby, maybe? Yeah. Ancestral house of Midian. So, and Midian was actually from Abraham, so through Keturah, I think. Alright, Deuteronomy 26:17. So, an enduring priesthood. 17 through 19. Every living has also told you today to be his separated people as he commanded you. Preserve all his orders, in other words, his laws. Fix yourself high over all the heathen so as to make yourself glorious, famous, beautiful. You should become a people sacred for the ever-living God as he commanded you. Whoa, wait a minute. He commanded you to become a people sacred. Okay, commanded you to be a royal priesthood. It was a command. Okay, so those of the 12 tribes that rejected it, that was not too smart, but a lot of them revolted. That's what the whole thing about the golden calf said. Just take them out of the book of lives, and the ones that revolted, the other thing he mentioned, the 40 years in the desert, you're just going to take them out of the book of life. So you can go ahead and revolt. If you're part of Israel and you revolt, that's not good. He commands you to be this royal priesthood, and he's going to have a royal priesthood. That's all there is to it. You can do whatever you want. You're still going to have it, because some people, he's going to still pick and make his royal priesthood out of the ones that did the right thing. All right, 2 Samuel 7:10. Start about 8. Consequently now, say this to my servant David. Thus says the ever-living, talking about Christ. I took you following after the sheep, become a leader over my people Israel. I have been with you whenever you went. Defeated your enemies. Okay, there you go. Christ the rock. Made your name great, like the name of those famous on earth. I have also provided a position for my people Israel and planted them. Okay, they're supposed to be a royal priesthood. They were commanded to do it, follow his laws, and be glorious where other nations, in other words, would want to be close to them, protected by them, and benefit from the law. Okay. They shall rest in it where they were planted, in other words, and never fear, nor shall the sons of evil again afflict as formerly. But from the day when I dictated a constitution to my people Israel, gave you rest from all your enemies. Okay, so that's Christ the shield, Christ the rock. Did the ever-living inquire, what house will you make? Okay. You shall sleep with your fathers, but I will raise an heir after you. That's verse 12. Who shall come from your loins? I will fix him in your kingship. He shall build a house. So he's talking about Solomon. I will establish the throne of his kingship forever. Okay. So, and that crosses, by the way, it mentions this 4 times. We're 13, 14 maybe. But then that, if you look down, you see that also crosses down to verse 16, crosses down to verse 25, fixing it forever, and then it crosses over to 29, about existing forever. So same context, 4 times right here. Establish the throne of his kingship of Solomon forever, and it mentions it 4 times. Okay, well, I think it's going to exist forever. Now people would say, well, that's just Christ. Doesn't really mean that there'll be another kingship that will exist. Well, whatever. We'll talk about that later. I shall be his father. He will be my son. I. Okay. He's talking about I. It's Christ speaking. All right. I will raise an heir. Right. I. Talking about Christ. Started out the ever-living, verse 8. Then I told you right there, I have been with you, defeated your enemies. Well, who went with him and defeated his enemies? It was Christ. Christ the rock. Okay, so I, over here, shall be his father. He will be my son. There you go. Ye are gods, Son of God. He will be a guide to the wandering. I will cause him to correct men with a staff, and the sons of Adam with a touch. I will never turn my friendship from him as I turned it from Saul, when I caused it to turn from him to you. For your house and your kingship shall endure forever, throne established forever. Okay, then 20. Alright, well, I guess. I wonder if that's somewhere else. I don't see it. Alright, I have to add verse 23 and 24. Maybe I should just go through 24. How about that? Just back up and go up to 24. Just do it that way. 17 to 24, because it's a little bit more down here. Oh, shoot. Sorry, I'm on the wrong one. I'm in Samuel, so I just messed that up. Alright, it says 10 through 19. Plus 22, 2 and 3. Alright. 2 Samuel 7, 10 to 29. Yeah, okay. So I didn't go all the way to 29. That was the problem. Alright. Alright, this one was 17 to 19. Alright, let's put that back. Alright, 22, 2 and 3. Alright, I just didn't go to the end of 29 there. At any rate, it was a singular nation in verse 23, redeemed people, established the people of Israel for yourself as a people forever. Alright, that's verse 24. Kingship forever, blah blah blah. So, forever, 4 times. Is it forever or is it not forever, or what is it? Because pastors teach, well, you know, there's something going to happen, we don't know what, but, you know, those people disappeared, we don't know who they are. And these white people are doing all this stuff now. We don't know where they came from either. Alright, 22, 2 and 3. So it's a song of thanks. This is David's song of thanks. Recited the words to the ever-living, when the ever-living had delivered him from the hand of all his enemies and the hand of Saul. So again, Christ the shield, Christ the rock. The Lord was a rock, a fortress, refuge. God is my fort. I will trust him, my shield, buckler, tower, and hold, my Savior who saved from oppression. Okay, this is the whole point of this right here. 22, 2 and 3 is Christ the shield, Christ the stone, or Christ the rock, and then Christ the horn of salvation, King of salvation. Some of the words are different depending on which Bible you got. But there it is all right there. And that ties back to Genesis 15:1, Christ the shield. So that's an important verse there. A whole bunch of verses about, you know, individually about Christ the shield. Alright, so let's go to First Chronicles. (17:21). Oh yeah, well, and even if you back up, sons of evil shall not continue to injure, as from formerly, or the appointment of judges. Well, here you go, verse 10. So this will be 17:10. I order the appointment of judges over my people of Israel. Okay. Will also subject all your enemies. Every living will build your house. It's talking about Christ. When your days are filled, I will establish an heir after you. It's talking about Solomon. This shall be from your own sons. Fix him in the kingship. He shall build me a house. I'll fix his throne forever. I'll be a father to him. He'll be a son to me. I won't turn my affection away. I'll appoint him in my house and in my kingdom for eternity. and his throne shall be constructed for eternity. These were promises. Okay, so 17:21, if you go a little farther. And who is like your people of Israel, a singular people in the earth? In other words, not mixed up, intermarried with other races. Okay, whom God went to redeem for himself. Okay, this is Christ. Christ is the Redeemer. People to bear your great and terrible name, which advance before your people, whom you redeemed from Egypt. Okay, so who advanced and redeemed? That idea is saving them from Egypt. So that's Christ, the rock, Christ, the shield. There you go. Made Israel your people forever. Okay, how many times you got to say that? You've been a God to them. Okay, so where are we at? 1 through 27. Okay. But now, Lord, the promise that you have promised your servant to his house, let it be firm forever. Do according to your promise. Let it be firm, larger name forever, by the declaration of the Lord of hosts. Okay, but it wouldn't be much if the Israel people didn't actually follow his law and weren't rejected because they didn't follow the God's law and didn't recognize Christ. I mean, what good would that be? I mean, what kind of priesthood is that? That's not a royal priesthood, a people who are going to ride on the clouds and have justice over other nations and do all these great things. If they don't worship Christ, they have to do that. So it only makes sense that the people he kept with from the time he came to today, he's still been with these Christian people, protecting them, shielding them as much as he does, but redeems them, gives them everlasting life, and that's what the promise and the hope's always been. It didn't change after he came and all of a sudden just disappear and lost all those Israelite people that believed on him, and they didn't have any kids and children that carried on. Of course not. They were told to go to their kindred, the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Of course, that's what they did. So these white Christian people that we saw, which the church is called Gentiles, which it shows you right there in Luke. If they just read the first chapter of Luke, they could see they're not Gentiles, as in non-Israelites. They're nations of the 12 tribes. Can't be anything else according to these promises that we're reading. Right there in Luke. It's the same people that we're reading about right here. Didn't change. They just, really bad logic. I don't know what the problem is. Larger name forever. Okay, well these promises would have to, if these promises came through and his name was enlarged forever, that's because he's got all these Christian people that want to be redeemed by Christ and do their best, I guess. Okay. It's God of Israel again. God, the God of Israel, is the God for Israel, and that the house of David, your servants, fixed forever. You, Lord, have revealed it. You will build him a house. Let your servant find his heart to pray. So again, his people are praying people. They follow his law. They go out and teach it to others best they can, and have a righteous justice system when they can. But to do it, there's ways of doing that laid out in Scripture, which we just covered in Exodus chapter 18. And it's in Deuteronomy and so forth. Alright. You are the ever-living who promises benefit to your servant. That's 26. Yes, now you have been pleased to bless the house of your servant to continue forever. So you have blessed it and will bless it forever. Okay. Well, Psalms 89. Now this was important. Now, how do you just throw this away? Psalms 89, 28 to 37. Well, it's Christ's shield back here in verse 18. So, If you start at the beginning of 89, it's his chosen. He made a treaty with his chosen. Your heir I will settle forever. For ages build up your throne. So that's 89:4. So it should really, oh, and your mercy. Starts out with your mercy in verse 3. I will sing the Lord's mercies. Okay, he has mercy, as he said in the second commandment, mercy on those who follow his law. Alright. Talks about the assembly of saints in verse 6. Again, that would be the church of saints. Those that are God's, in other words, because he works for them, because they pray to him and they attempt to do what's right by looking and reading his word, trying to put it into action. Okay. And then pray about it. So, who is like the Lord in the skies? Who of God's sons can equal the Lord? What God's sons? That's verse 7. Okay. Ye are God's, right? God's sons. Right there. The grand and the council of saints. Okay. You form this world sphere and its times. It's 12. So just read on down. Behold you mercy and truth. You the glory and strength. Our shield is with the Lord, with Israel's holy, our King. Okay. So there's the King of righteousness, Melchizedek. That's verse 19. In a vision I spoke to you spoke to your saint, speaking of himself, and said, I put strength in a man from the people, my chosen I raised. Yes, David I formed as my servant. I appointed by my sacred oil. My hand shall be firmly with him. That's 21. Yes, he shall be strong by my arm. That's another way it says he brought people out with a strong arm out of captivity. That's in Isaiah. His foes shall not rise over him. So there's Christ the shield, Christ the rock, who fights for you so that they can't have an upper hand. Nor the son of wickedness distress his assailants. I cut from his face. There you go. All who hate him I will defeat. Okay, that's Christ the rock. With him are my mercy and truth, and I lift up his horn, or his kingdom, or it can be king or kingdom. Use a horn as a king, or it could also apply to a kingdom. Lift up his horn by my power. Placed his left hand on the sea, think navy, his right to the rivers afar. He shall say to me, you are my Father, my God, and my tower of retreat. That stated differently depending on your Bible. Yes, I will make him imperial, the first of the kings of the earth. I will guard him forever by my mercy. Secure my treaty to him, and his heir shall endure forever. His throne like the periods of heaven. That can't be more specific. If his sons should abandon my laws, and by my decrees cease to walk, if they profane my institutions, and will not preserve my commands, I will punish their sins with the rod, and their faults with a lash, but my mercy not take from his people, nor will I be false to my truth. My treaty will never be broken, nor anything changed from the words of my lips, for I, by my holiness, swore that I'll never forget about David. His heir shall endure forever. Wait a minute. Okay. So no matter what you do, he's just going to beat you with a rod, judge you, kill a bunch of you, whatever. Judgment starts at the house of God. There you go. But not going to get rid of the 12 tribes. They're always going to be over all the nations. They're always going to be counted as God's because he acts for them. When they pray, when they attempt to follow his law and do what's right, and so on. And at the end, he writes the law into their hearts. That's Hebrews 8:8 and other verses, it says in Jeremiah and so forth. They always follow his law. Once they come back together under Christ, at the end time, they follow his law, and then they judge other nations as the royal priesthood. End of story. Near me his throne, like the sun, like the moon, be established forever. There you go. But now you forsake and regret. Against your anointed you rage. Okay. and break from your bond with your servant. Throw his crown down to the ground, and through all his fences you break. Yeah, judgment on the house of the God. Okay, so that's what the rest of that is about. You keep on reading. Like fire with anger consumed, that's 47. Remember how short is my life. Why create in vain all of Adam's sons? Okay, so saying they're Adamites. Talking about people who insult or curse the chosen. Okay. So, again, just like he said, you can abandon the laws, profane his institutions, don't do what he tells you to do, don't follow his decrees, however you want to look at it, whatever your wording is, but he's just gonna, you know, take out judgment on the ones that are responsible for all that and continue on. So let's look at chapter 119, and then let's see what we want to do after that. Oh, well, 119 is, I guess that's the longest chapter, but it's all about people who will be blessed. And 119 tells you, happy the straight who walk in the laws of the Lord. They're happy, they're blessed, they're careful to keep the commands, the decrees, have regard to his word, and put all that into practice, his orders, his proof, his rules, so on and so forth. They're the ones that will have life. In other words, they'll have everlasting life. But if you have contempt for all that, then you're judged and you don't have everlasting life. So you opt out. So if you want to opt out, you know, if you're really that stupid, just opt out and say, well, you know, I don't believe in this entity. Go ahead. You'll be removed from the book of life, and it's your choice. You can opt out. So, if you read, I was just looking through 39, I mean, it just repeats the same stuff over and over. Talking about the ones that reject him. And, oh, that was the other thing. I went through that document as well. As, one of the reasons I was highlighting that, because I didn't really get the part about being taken out of the book of lives. And, you know, I mentioned the verse, but then I didn't really write it out, so it would be noticeable. Or I think there was 4 times in the New Testament it mentions about Christ taking people out of the book of lives. And I really didn't highlight that and make that prominent. So it was one of the things I was doing with the highlight on the green. I was going to do 4 mentions of the book of life, so I was going to make sure everybody can find that. Because somebody was asking me about that, and so I got the one, you know, my own copy out and I was looking at it, and I was like, I know there's more. Well, yeah, there is, but I just didn't really spell it out too well. So I'll have a new document up there in a few days, and it'll look much better than the one that's up there now. And again, just go by the date at the top of the document. So if your date, or if yours don't have a date, then it's for sure old. There's probably some that don't have dates on them. Alright, laws, commands, rules, proofs, decrees, orders. That's the terms mine use. And he talks about those who opt out. So Psalms 119. Just read it. And you follow his law. That's how you get everlasting life. That's how you get mercy. The ones who didn't leave his commands. A law. Oh, but I like the way mine does. It kind of wraps up 176. A lost sheep I strayed, but your servant you sought, who left not your commands. Yeah. Okay, lost sheep. At any rate, alright, so that's 119. Alright, Isaiah would be starting with 41:16. Well, you know, since we're already around 44 minutes, why don't we just knock off here on video 12 and come back on video 13 at Isaiah 41, because there's still a whole bunch of quotes here. So it'll be a whole other video just covering these quotes. And I hope I got everything, I guess. Yeah, Jeremiah, there you go. chapter 30, 31, 32, and 33. 4 times it just basically says the same thing, plus it's in 23, so 5 times in Jeremiah. And I forget what was in chapter 3. And then these are all the verses that kind of connect the concept of the 2 witnesses together. So we'll come back with video 13 on Isaiah 41, 1 through 16. Thanks.